All right, welcome back. Hope you all had a great weekend as we move through summer. We are now continuing our review of our most recent RBT exam. We're going to go through the next set of questions and break them down together. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We've helped thousands of RBTs pass their exams. We offer 3 full practice exams, a task list study guide, and a combo pack. What is our best deal? Questions, comments, please let me know. I would love to help. Other than that, let's keep working hard, keep studying hard, get to our questions. Question 1. Which of the following behavior explanations would be best when describing a behavior you want to change? When we talk about behavior explanations, what we're really talking about is behavior definitions. And when we define behaviors in ABA, and yes, as an RBT, you need to learn how to properly define a behavior, because as an RBT, you will be experiencing behaviors when they happen first, more often than not. And what you want to define is the behavior in an observable and measurable way. Meaning, what can we see on a consistent basis? What can we measure on a consistent basis? If we can't observe it, if we can't measure it consistently, we can't change it. So this question is asking what? Well, it's asking about describing a behavior, but in a way that will be best to work with and to change. So let's look at A. Blaine has lived in a group home for 2 years because of his aggression. Blaine has ODD, which leads to him lashing out at others. What mistake is made in this explanation? The primary mistake is blaming the behavior on the diagnosis, which is ODD or operational defiant disorder. We never blame behavior on diagnoses, especially on a diagnosis that we can't cure. If we were to blame all behaviors on the quote autism, what can we really change? Because we can't cure the autism. We have to figure out another explanation for the behavior. B, Tom has autism. Whenever you hand a toy to Tom, he throws it across the room. So be careful here. Yes, we state Tom has autism, but do we attribute the behavior to the autism? We don't. We just say whenever you hand a toy to Tom, he throws it across the room. We're not giving an explanation. We're not saying because Tom has this disability or this diagnosis. All we're saying is you give a toy to Tom, he throws it across the room. Can you measure? Can you observe that? Absolutely. So B is going to be better than A. But is it our best option? Let's keep reading. Jariah does not sleep well at night, causing him to swear at teachers and parents. Let's be careful here. Can poor sleep be a setting event? Absolutely. Can we consistently observe and measure Jariah not sleeping well, quote unquote, at night? Not really. Jariah, by observation, might appear to be sleeping great every single night. Jariah might wake up, however, and say, well, I didn't sleep well. Now, how do we know that for sure? We just can't. If he's particularly savvy, maybe that's his excuse to swear at teachers and parents. Well, the only reason I was cursing today was because I didn't sleep well. We can't really observe and measure that without some sort of assistance from a device. But if we were just watching Jariah, there's no way we could consistently observe and measure sleeping well. B is still better than C. And then D, whenever a boring movie is played, Rachel stops paying attention. Now, if we would have just said whenever a movie is played, Rachel stops paying attention, at least that's a little better. But the word boring, again, is very subjective. It's very hard to quantify. And then stops paying attention, again, subjective, hard to quantify. Okay. I might look at the movie and think, well, this isn't boring. And I might look at Rachel and think, well, she's paying attention. You might look at the movie and say, this is boring, and Rachel isn't paying attention. It could be the same movie, the same situation. The problem with D, it's not objective. It's not defined well enough. Leaving B as still our best answer. Yes, we state Tom has autism, but the behavior is just whenever you hand a toy to Tom, he throws it across the room. Clearly observable, clearly measurable, the best answer out of these 4. And that's really what you're looking for when you take your exam. If you want to measure time as it relates to a behavior of interest, which of the following measurement procedures would you not use? Don't get lost in the wording here of this question. Don't overthink it. What are we talking about? What is the question asking about? The question is asking about measurement procedures, specifically measurement procedures that use time as it relates to the behavior of interest. All we're looking for to answer this question is the measurement procedure that doesn't involve the usage of time. Enter response time. Obviously, this is going to use time. It's in the name. Enter response time is time in between responses, not what we're looking for. Frequency. What does frequency measure? Well, frequency measures the amount something happens. It can be a count, but it doesn't necessarily relate it to time. If we wanted to include time and frequency, that would make it rate. But frequency alone isn't necessarily concerned with time. What about latency? Well, latency is the time in between the SD and the start of a response, so it certainly uses time. Duration is how long something lasts, the time something lasts. The only measurement here, which does not use time as it relates to the behavior of interest, would be frequency. Don't overthink this question. It's not that complicated. Current behavior is evoked by blank. All right. RBT exam. Many questions, if you prepare and if you study well, are going to be easy. This can freak people out sometimes. They get panicked. They think the question is too easy. That just means you're well prepared. Take advantage of those questions that seem quote unquote easy. Read the question, understand what it's asking, trust your preparation. You're just looking for the most possible points, meaning you're answering the most possible questions correctly. When you see an easy question, take advantage of it, okay? Trust your preparation, trust your training, pick the best answer. In this case, current behavior is evoked by what? Well, what evokes behavior? Well, SDs, prompts, right? SDs and prompts are what? Antecedents. In order to evoke a behavior, it has to happen before the behavior. And what do we call something that happens before the behavior? Well, we call them antecedents. What do consequences do? Consequences increase behavior. Consequences decrease behavior. Consequences don't evoke behavior. Corrective feedback is a type of consequence. And then shaping doesn't evoke behavior. Shaping is a process of reinforcing behavior. The only answer which evokes a behavior, antecedents. Antecedents include things like discriminative stimuli and prompts. Of the following scenarios, which one does not represent a possible motivating operation? Motivating operations, as I always say, one of the more difficult concepts for RBTs to learn and new RBTs to understand. How we want to think about a motivating operation is an antecedent that comes before the SD. It's going to make you want or not want something, okay? Because it's going to alter the value of a consequence. The most obvious example is if you go hours without eating, you become very hungry. The value of food has increased through deprivation of food, right? You don't go, or let's say you go hours without drinking water and you exercise and you play basketball and you're out in the heat. What do you really crave? Water. Okay. So you can see how the value of something can increase or decrease. That's what we're really looking for here, right? But the question specifically asks for the scenario that does not represent a possible motivating operation, meaning 3 of these will represent a motivating operation while 1 will not. A, you stayed out with your friends until 3 a.m. last night partying. This morning, all you want is Advil and water. Now, why do you want Advil and water? Well, you stayed out until 3 a.m. partying, right? The partying until 3 a.m., probably the drinking or the eating or whatever else was going on, was the motivating operation that altered the value of Advil and water. You wake up in the morning, Advil and water, they're much more valuable to you than they were before you went out partying. It's a great example of a motivating operation. B, your wife cooked you a huge meal for your birthday for breakfast. The rest of the day, you ate salad. Now, why do you think you ate salad the rest of the day? Well, you ate this huge meal for breakfast. You were satiated, meaning you had your fill of food. The rest of the day, all you wanted was salad. The big breakfast was the motivating operation. It altered the value of food and a big meal later on in the day. C, you and your friends take a road trip. When you see a gas station, you pull in and fill up your tank. Now, careful here. What is the motivating operation for getting gas or pulling into the gas station? Well, it's going to be needing gas, right? When your gas tank light comes on, the value of gas goes up. The value of a gas station goes up. When you see a gas station, however, what is that doing? What's signaling to you gas station is or gas is available? And that's the difference between the MO and the SD. The MO makes you want or not want, it alters the value, while the SD says, okay, here it is, it's available. Your light might come on, making you want to get gas, but until you see a gas station, the SD, gas isn't available. C is actually just going to be an example of a simple ABC SD contingency, right? The SD is the gas station, you pull in, you fill up your tank. And then D, a commercial for deep dish stuffed crust pizza is shown. You immediately start looking through DoorDash to order food. Does the commercial signal that pizza is available? It does not. It might make you want pizza, but it does not say it's available. It makes you want it, makes it an MO. The SD is going to be either the phone number or the app or the ability to order the actual pizza shown, right? The commercial was simply a motivating operation for getting the pizza. So which one does not represent a possible MO? It's going to be C. Now, if you don't quite understand this question and you're new to studying, that's okay, right? This is one of the more difficult concepts. If you've been studying a while, make sure you review those MOs and those SDs. What's the difference, right? Why do we distinguish between the two? A major disadvantage of permanent product recording is what? Permanent product recording, think about it, define it. Permanent product recording, we are looking at the outcome, the product, or the tangible creation of a behavior. What do we know about permanent product recording? We don't actually need to see the behavior occur. It can save us time, it can save us energy, but we need the behavior to consistently produce something in order to measure it. So if we're looking for a major disadvantage of permanent product recording, what would that be? A, you don't need to observe the behavior as it happens. That's not a disadvantage, that's an advantage, right? You can tell someone to go wash your car. You can go check an hour later and see, did they wash your car? You don't actually have to see them wash the car. B, the behavior must reliably produce something tangible. Now, this is a disadvantage, right? Because if we want to use permanent product for, let's say, self-injury, okay, sometimes the behavior leaves a red mark. Sometimes the behavior leaves a cut. Sometimes the behavior leaves nothing. Can we reliably measure that behavior with permanent product? Well, no. If the behavior doesn't produce anything, there's nothing to measure. You might get some artifacts, some incorrect measurements using permanent product here. Is permanent product time efficient? It is. You don't actually have to see the behavior occur. Is it resource efficient? It is. You can be doing other things. Your staff can be doing other things. Your BCBAs can be doing other things. While the behavior is occurring, all you're worried about is the product. So a major disadvantage is going to be the behavior must reliably produce something tangible in order to record it using permanent product. Which of the following scenarios best represents a behavior with an automatic function? What are the functions of behavior? Escape, attention, tangible, automatic sensory. The function says what? Well, it says, why is this behavior occurring? So if the question wants us to find a scenario with the behavior with an automatic function, we're looking for a behavior that what? Well, we're looking for a behavior that doesn't require somebody else. Automatic essentially means alone. Any other behavior that involves somebody else, another party, cannot be automatic. So that's what our key here is on this question. A, House drops his medicine on the floor. Dr. Cuddy picks it up for him. House says, thanks. Is this automatic? Well, no, it's social, right? Socially mediated. House drops his medicine. Dr. Cuddy picked it up for him. This is all socially mediated. This is not automatic. B, Jerry throws a tennis ball against a wall over and over again while he thinks. Who else is involved in this scenario? No one. Throwing the tennis ball against a wall over and over again is automatic, right? It's self-stimulatory in a way, okay? It's sensory in a way, right? This is a great example of a behavior that is automatically functioning, right? Doesn't involve anybody else, and yet it's maintained through reinforcement of this ball going against a wall over and over again, and Jerry catching it over and over again. C, a doctor says this will only hurt a little bit before drawing blood from a patient. Why is it not automatic? Well, because there are two people involved. This is social. Marie orders a package on Amazon, which arrives the next day. Well, the package doesn't get there on its own, right? It involves other people and other processes going through in order to get the package to Marie. D is not automatic either. The only one that is automatic, essentially alone, sensory, however you want to say it, is going to be B. Jerry, by himself, throws a tennis ball against a wall over and over again while he thinks. If you want to encourage and teach for generalization, what type of teaching would be best? What is generalization? Generalization is the ability to engage or exhibit behavior outside of a learned environment or a teaching environment. Generalization is arguably the most important thing we can teach or encourage in ABA, because if we're not generalizing, how much good are we really doing? If we just are able to do something in the clinic, but we can't do it anywhere else in the real world, does it really matter? No, not really. So generalization, very important. What's the best way to encourage and teach for generalization? What type of teaching? Well, as an RBT, you need to know two major types of teaching. You need to know discrete trial teaching, and you need to know naturalistic teaching. Those are the two major umbrellas you need to think about when talking about teaching. Discrete trial, great for new behaviors, strengthening behaviors. Naturalistic, great for maintenance, generalization. DTT, you can deliver a lot of trials quickly, a lot of consequences quickly, very contrived, very unnatural. Naturalistic is not as quick. You need to be more precise with what you're choosing, but better for generalizing and maintaining. So if we want to encourage and teach generalization, what type of teaching is best? Clearly not DTT for the reasons we just listed. We said naturalistic, but what about incidental? Well, incidental is just the same thing as naturalistic. Incidental, you're looking for incidents that you can use as teaching moments. Incidental is very powerful. As an RBT, we should be incidentally teaching all the time, on breaks, during lunch, during play. Incidental teaching is awesome for generalization and maintenance. So if you want to encourage and teach for generalization, you would use incidental or naturalistic teaching. Therefore, D, both B and C. As part of your supervision, your BCBA requires you to pick up coffee and bring it to each session and meeting. Is this acceptable? Now, let's learn a lesson here, okay? We need to take all these questions on the RBT exam at face value. Obviously, if you and your BCBA have a good relationship and they ask you to get you coffee, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You would get coffee for a friend, you get coffee for a colleague, not a big deal. What is this question saying, though? It's saying as part of your supervision, you have to pick up coffee and bring it to each session, as well as if this was some sort of or some part of your job requirement. Is that okay? Of course not, right? A, yes, your BCBA is your boss. While that may be true, they can't require you to bring them coffee and breakfast, okay? B, yes, this could be considered part of your supervision. It's not behavior analytic in nature. It's got nothing to do with your client. It's certainly not supervised. It's not certainly not part of your supervision. C, no, BCBA should not abuse their authority. Yes, even if you feel like, what's the big deal? Especially if you're, let's say an intern, a BCBA intern, you're getting your hours. Still, don't let this occur. Okay, that's not part of ABA. It's not part of your job description to bring them coffee as part of your supervision. Okay, it's unethical. End of the day, it's unethical, and that's really what this question is asking you. So, is this acceptable? Of course not. BCBA should not abuse their authority over RBTs. And then finally, you're starting with a new client on Friday who has a history of biting other people's arms and pulling hair to get out of task. Which of the following would be the least acceptable antecedent intervention? Now, what is the question asking? It's asking about this idea that the client bites and pulls hair. And we want to do some antecedent interventions, right? Because we want to prevent you or other people from being harmed by biting and pulling hair. Now, which is the least acceptable? Meaning 3 of these would be more acceptable than the 4th. So an antecedent intervention means it's going to occur before the biting and pulling hair happens. Okay, we're trying to prevent. It's preventative measures. So A, avoid placing task demands on the client. Why is this happening? To get out of task. If we avoid placing demands on the client, what have we done? We've let the client escape. Certainly, we're not, us as RBTs and technicians and BCBAs and ABA practitioners, are not going to avoid this behavior by not implementing the function that the client is trying to avoid. So A would be a bad decision. B, put your hair in a ponytail before a session. Sure, if they're going to pull hair, make sure you try to protect your hair some way. C, wear long sleeves when working with the client. There we go. Maybe we can wear a hoodie. Maybe the hoodie is going to block the bite. And then D, make sure you're out of reach before giving a task demand. There we go. So we're still giving the task demand. We're not avoiding the behavior, but we're just going to be safely out of reach if we know this is going to occur. Antecedent interventions is all about understanding your client, predicting what might happen given the SD or whatever you say or do, and preparing for it to occur. So our answer here is going to be avoid placing task demands on client. That is the least acceptable intervention. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe. Check out rbtexamreview.com for our proven study materials. We'll be back Wednesday, more RBT questions, Friday and Saturday, BCBA questions. As always, work hard, study hard. See you soon.